Nikki Williams wrote about the Hogsback and Lyonsville in 1971, and was published in the 1988 Tehama County Memories. This concludes her story. Mr. Bressler ran a stage stop for Teamsters at the foot of the Belle Mill Road where Hillman Willard now lives. It was across from the Sunsweet Dryer. It is told that the Teamsters, after successfully negotiating the hazards of the Sacramento Ferry and the Sand Slough, sometimes felt the need of a bracing elixir. If they were lucky enough to have whiskey barrels among their cargo, they occasionally drilled a small hole under one of the hoops, filled the container, plugged the hole, slipped the hoop in place, and refilled the barrel with water. After spending the night at Bressler's, the Teamsters were able to brave the steep grades of the Hogsback at dawn. Any coverage of the Belle Mill Road would be incomplete without some mention of the thousands of head of sheep and cattle that were driven over it. The road was used heavily in the spring to drive stock to the summer pasture to the mountains to the east. It was used again in the fall when the herds were returned to the Sacramento Valley for wintering. Cowboys who made the drive with cattle dreaded the overnight stay at Halfway House. For some unknown reason, cattle were prone to break out of the holding corral and stampede. This usually meant that the riders had to night herd at this camp. In October 1878, the Belle Mill was destroyed by fire, and operations were resumed at the new Champion Mill established at Lyonsville. The flume was in use for both mills from 1871 until 1914. With the abandonment of the flume at the latter date and gradual purchase of the small homesteads by the large ranchers, population along the Belle Mill Road declined. Leander Myers and Jim Davis attempted to maintain the flume for their own use, but in a few years the high trestle above Finley Lake blew down, resulting in the complete abandonment of the flume. By 1920 most of the settlers along the road had moved elsewhere. There were few habitations and little travel along the Belle Mill Road. Bruce Barron wrote Dr. Goes Nuts Over Pipeline, published in the 1995 Tehama County Memories. Long-term residents of Manton often recall the beehive of activity during construction for the Big PG gas line, especially as it wormed its way through local areas around Black Butte, Dara Springs, and west of the Long Ranch. There were constant earth-shaking, ear-splitting booms, followed by clouds of dust and smoke, as workers blasted their way through the heavy lava rock, often referred to as Manton Loam. Advertisement. When it came to blasting, there was one truck driver who must have had a pocket full of rabbit's feet. Loaded with tons of explosives, he was traveling along the Wildcat Road just off Highway 44, north of Black Butte. As he started down the steep grade, he lost his brakes, and the big truck catapulted down into the canyon, spreading its cargo of explosives all over the side of the mountain. Luckily, the type of explosives he was carrying required mixing with a special additive to detonate, otherwise the resulting explosion may have changed Black Butte into the size of an anthill. Bob Horton, who was the PG, while mounting a big Rolls-Royce jet engine, a small nut came loose, bounced against the casing, plunged through a small orifice and disappeared somewhere in the delicate interior of the engine. No amount of probing with flashlights and bent wires could locate or dislodge the offending nut. Bob was in a heap of trouble. The huge engine would have to be dismounted and shipped back to the factory in Houston, Texas, and disassembled just to remove the troublesome nut. This would involve a tremendous loss of time and money to PG. He recalled that doctors have an instrument for retrieving objects from the stomachs of small children who have swallowed marbles, coins, etc. Bob proceeded to Red Bluff and contacted Dr. David F. Smith, who was accommodating enough to make a special house call with his endoscope. A few moments later there were sounds of rejoicing as the doctor skillfully retrieved the evasive object of concern. Thanks to this bit of Yankee ingenuity, the pipeline construction remained on schedule. Dr. Smith refused to accept payment for his kind deed. Perhaps it was because he didn't have to worry about a malpractice suit. However, P.G. She can be reached by email at jbarton2013@gmail.com.